Now let's talk about the cashless debit card, because this was a policy under your government which helped prevent our Indigenous brothers and sisters blowing welfare money on grog and gambling in places like Ceduna, East Kimberley, the WA Goldfields and Bundaberg. Labor, as we all know, withdrew the card in October last year on the grounds that it was racist. The consequences of that were tragic and, it must be said, perfectly predictable. Today, you finally got your hands on some data outlining how tragic that was. I've had a quick look at the data and there was a marked increase in antisocial behaviour and drunkenness in those communities. What did you see in the figures, Michael?
Well, Fred, it was the least surprising thing of all time that Labor abolishes a card that requires people to spend money on food and medicines and essential items. They cancel that card so people can now spend more money on drugs, alcohol, and God knows what else. And those communities are now suffering with public drunkenness, domestic violence, antisocial behaviour, crime, the reports that you refer to out of East Kimberley again. Completely predictable. Sadly predictable. Tragic though, because we warned the Labor government. We said to them, if you abolish this card, more children will be neglected, more women will suffer domestic violence, more businesses will be forced to close down because of the antisocial behaviour in the area. And in each and every case that is happening, whether it's, as you say, Ceduna or East Kimberley or in the goldfields, and we're obviously seeing similar things in Alice Springs. I mean, the Labor Party have an ideological aversion to income management and don't care if that means, as I say, more kids suffer, more women suffer, more communities suffer. And I think it's shameful. I think in this Parliament, we criticise each other on all sorts of things, but it's very rarely that you see an instance like this where the government was on notice. They made a decision with their eyes wide open. They knew what this would do. And quite frankly, I don't know how some of them can sleep at night knowing that this is what they've inflicted on really innocent children, women and communities.
Yeah, the outcome was nothing short of misery and horror, really. But Michael, why did it take so long for this data to be released?
Well, because there's a very deliberate program from the government and a number of agencies to try and limit the information that is provided. And getting information out of the government in a transparent way is impossible. I suspect that they've always known, as I said, that where this abolishing the cashless debit card was going to go. And so they always knew that the data and the evidence was going to be quite damning. So they've undertaken a process to try and hide that data and that information. And it shouldn't rely on leaked reports appearing in newspapers in order to get this information. But to be frank, Fred, all you need to do is go and walk down the main street of one of these communities and ask the locals what it was like now compared to when the cashless debit card was in place, and they will tell you the full story. And you'll see the dysfunction and antisocial behaviour in front of you. It's not a secret, but the Labor Party here in Canberra are trying to keep it as quiet as possible, to their eternal shame, quite frankly.